Hey everybody, welcome to the HL7 Open Source Tooling Series. Today we welcome Rob Scanlon from the MITRE Corporation to share information about FHIR Conformance testing with MITRE's Inferno tool. And so without further ado, I'll turn it over to him.
Oh, thank you so much, Sandy. I'm really excited to be able to go over some of the work that my team has been doing. But first, I just wanted to quickly introduce myself. I'm Rob Scanlon. I'm a principal software engineer here at MITRE within the Open Health Solutions Department. And I've been focused on interoperability and open standards and specifically FHIR testing since about 2015. I'm the Inferno MITRE project lead, and I am a software engineer. I like building web applications and web APIs, and I have in the past worked in the financial services, defense domains, and now I'm obviously focused on healthcare. Today, I'm going to talk about the open source work we are doing in conformance testing with Inferno. I will provide an overview of Inferno itself, and then I'm going to focus on really in this talk how you use Inferno to do conformance testing with what we call Inferno test kits. So that's the majority of users that will use Inferno through these test kits. So I'm going to spend most of my time walking through that. So hopefully everything works out with that. It's always kind of a little exciting, I guess, to take that approach to presentations here. But first, to start at a high level, what is Inferno? It is an HL7 FHIR conformance testing tool, or really an ecosystem of tools. This is all open source. Everything my team builds is open source and intended to be available for use as however you see fit under the Apache 2 license. We have been working on Inferno since about 2018 for ONC, the Office of the National Coordinator for Health IT, and really we have two kind of big ways that we are trying to help out in general in the community. So first off, we build tools for ONC's Health IT certification program. Specifically, we have one tests for their G10 standardized API certification criterion, where we are an approved test method. But then also we support all different kinds of testing outside the context of the certification program. ONC's Health IT certification program currently only has one FHIR-related certification criteria, which only covers a small percentage of how you might want to use FHIR. However, we really are hoping to help the whole FHIR community in general and support testing as many different sort of use cases as possible. There are 3 links at the bottom for you to take a look at. The easiest way just to try Inferno's tests is to go to ONC's hosted platform. That's inferno.healthit.gov, and that provides an interface that you can use just to run tests without having to download and install anything locally. However, we do really encourage people, if they want to use these tools, to download them and run them locally. So you can check out the code and ways to download that on our Inferno Framework GitHub organization. So the majority, just about all of the work we do will be under that organization, so you can see all the different kinds of things we're doing. We also have in-depth documentation on how to use the Inferno test kits and how to use the Inferno framework on the documentation site. So that's inferno-framework.github.io. If you just search, do a web search for Inferno FHIR, I'm sure these links will just pop up. So I want to take a little bit of time to describe what the target users of Inferno are. So because we actually have a couple of different kind of users in mind as we built Inferno. First and foremost, we want to support developers that are implementing FHIR APIs and related systems. The vast majority of Inferno users will probably fall into this category. We are trying to make Inferno as easy as possible to use for those that are building FHIR APIs and FHIR clients. And a lot of the work we do, a lot of sort of the interface kind of features are targeting them. So the intent here is to make it so that you can use Inferno throughout the development lifecycle, and really encourage people to start taking a look at tests if they're available for use cases they're interested in as soon as possible. We also provide a couple different ways to integrate into Inferno tests. So we provide a web API alongside the web interface, and also have some CLI related options. So that's the biggest set of sort of users of Inferno. However, we also are looking to support, in general, certification programs and test labs. So for the time where the creator of the FHIR-enabled system isn't the same as those that actually want to run the tests, we want to make that work as well as possible. So obviously, being part of ONC's Health IT certification program, we want to make sure it works well for that case. And so we have certain features that support that. And I'll take a little time at the end to walk through those. Also, we do our best to support the standards developers. So something that we found as we build tests using Inferno is that we find areas of potential ambiguity in the various specifications. So we view one of our jobs to sort of help clarify any of those ambiguous parts. Something about a certain thing about sort of writing tests, it's very hard to create tests if there is ambiguity in the specification. So we put a good amount of effort into providing feedback as we can to the standards developers. And then also just in general, we're here to support other tool developers. So all of this is open source and you can use it in any way that is relevant to whatever you're working on. And we do try to make it so that other tool developers can grab components that might be useful and reuse it within whatever sort of context that they're interested in. So before I kind of hop into a demo and showing the different parts, just wanted to go over really 3 key Inferno concepts, just to make sure people understand sort of in general the sort of concept of operations here for the Inferno set of tools. Really, there are three kind of big high-level concepts. First off, there are the Inferno test kits. These are downloadable testing applications, conformance testing applications. They are specific to FHIR implementation guides or certification criteria. A thing that you need to be aware of with the FHIR specification is it's a platform standard where it provides a whole bunch of different kind of options for transmitting and receiving health data and related data. And it's so broad and so flexible that you don't really necessarily get interoperability out of the box with the base FHIR specification. And you get that from what are called FHIR implementation guides, which provides rules around how to use FHIR within different contexts. And that enables interoperability within certain areas, certain domains, or certain groups of systems. And really, the way Inferno works is it targets those implementation guides instead of necessarily a base FHIR specification. And those tests that are relevant to those use cases or FHIR implementation guides are packaged into these Inferno test kits. Each Inferno test kit, you can think of its own application, download and run them each individually. However, they do share common user interfaces, functionality, and installation. So if you have downloaded and used one test kit, there's a good chance you be able to sort of understand how to use any Inferno test kits. Some examples are listed at the bottom, and I'll go through a couple of these in more detail. But for example, we have a test kit that targets US core. We have one for ONC's G10 certification criteria. Another example is the Karen IG for Blue Button test kit. These are all sort of different kinds of types of test kits and test different things. So besides just providing these standalone applications, these test kits, we also provide a framework for creating the test kits, and it's what our team uses to create these test kits. You can think of it as an application framework similar to Ruby on Rails, but instead of a framework for just creating a generic web application, it's a framework for creating downloadable test applications. The way it in general works is test author. They create tests using a Ruby DSL, a domain-specific language. And that's all that you have to do. The test writer has to do. The framework provides everything else, like an integrated FHIR resource validator, a common web UI, common tooling, and a whole bunch of other things that we think is helpful. To find out more about that, you can go to inferno-framework.github.io. And the third key concept here is Inferno Platforms, which is a robust infrastructure for hosting several related test kits. Now, Inferno really is intended to, the Inferno test kits are intended to be downloadable, so you can run them locally, maybe host them on your own infrastructure, or run them on your own machine. They're small, they're intended to be fairly lightweight, or as lightweight as they could be. But we found that people really like having the ability to just try out tests on a public host. And that's where Inferno Platforms come into play, where a platform is optimized to host several or many different test kits, and the underlying pieces are configured to support a larger number of users. And the prime example of that is inferno.healthit.gov, but we do provide tooling if people are interested in hosting something like inferno.healthit.gov themselves. So those are the key Inferno concepts.
Thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, give us a like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you won't miss the next one.